Many of us have tried at some point to decipher what we've been told is English handwriting, when what we see is chicken scratch. We end up simply asking the other person what it was they wrote and taking their word for it, defeating the purpose of having written anything at all and wasting all of the time that was meant to be saved in writing a note in the first place. But can you imagine trying to decipher a piece of handwriting for hundreds of years? Such is the case in the mystery presented this week. It was 1896, and a man by the name of John Ashton was doing research for a book he was writing called Devil in Britain. As he sat in a room piled high with books and papers, Ashton came across one that gave him pause. In the book, whose title is a whopping Introduction to Chaldean, Syriac, and Armenian et Dosum Alias Linguas, he came across something that would make it into his book and send it soaring into popularity. In the book, written by Tessio Ambrogio degli Albonesi, was a piece of writing in either a strange language or a code that was completely unfamiliar to Ashton, who spent most of his time looking at languages. According to Albonesi, the origins of the code were a bit strange. He had written his book out of an interest in ancient languages, his special interest being in the Christian Kabbalah, and learned of a man by the name of Ludovico Spoletano who had a question. The question that was on his mind was whether or not Antonio Maria's denarii had been found in its entirety by one Cavaliero Marcantonio, who was the son of a rich woman from Piacenza. If all of the denarii had not been found, where might he look for it? To attain the answers to this question, he made a decision that was probably not the wisest choice in hindsight. He summoned the devil. According to Albonesi, Ludovico then went into a trance state. When he awoke, he was holding a pencil, and an answer was written in front of him. But it was in a strange language he had never seen before. Supposedly, the message had been written by the devil. Great. What was he supposed to do with that? What indeed? It's been 500 years now, and we have yet to solve it. Albonesi carefully copied the writing for his book, which was later found by Ashton, who also copied it carefully for his own book. So, is this a real story? Was Albonesi duped by a man playing a joke? Or did Ashton maybe try to dupe us? Let's examine the code. One notices immediately upon examination that pitchforks are made use of throughout the message. It's an interesting notation to make, being that while depictions of the devil with a pitchfork were common in the Middle Ages, the use of a pitchfork was not always part of his folkloric appearance. Why would it be part of the language? It seems an odd thing to just toss into a language. Perhaps the use of a pitchfork was added because someone had seen the language and thought that the characters resembled pitchforks. Who's to say which came first? That being said, there does seem to be a certain linguistic order to the letters. It may not necessarily be a language, but rather a code. The use of a symbol like a pitchfork, if indeed that is what it is, may be an indication of how to solve the code. It has been noted that the letters seem to resemble the ancient language of Amharic, supposedly the language used in the Garden of Eden though it's impossible to know for sure. Being that Albanese loved languages, it is an interesting notation. It isn't proof that he invented the code, but it does cast a certain suspicion on it. What would be the purpose if this were an authentic writing of the devil? You'd think the devil would have more productive things to do than to torture us with long-forgotten codes and puzzles. Public interest was aroused in its fullness in 1539 when the code was first published. King Charles II ended up displaying it at Queen's College and drew hordes of visitors and curiosity seekers to take a look and try to decipher it. Ashton also had the same result when he republished the code in 1896. It's possible that, in spite of public interest in the workings of the devil, the code may just be of the average fare, spruced up with talk of supernatural origin. Such a thing was not uncommon in that day. Real or not, this story pops up from time to time. More recently, a short story written by Alan Noel Latimer Munby was based on this tale and was published in his 1949 book of short stories called The Alabaster Hand and Other Ghost Stories. This story does have somewhat of a legacy. It's not completely forgotten, and so if it was a prank, it seems that Albanese ended up getting the fame he desired.